Praise be Jesus and Mary. Today we celebrate a votive Mass in honor of St. Maximilian Kolbe, because his feast day is tomorrow, which falls on a Sunday. Today's Gospel reading from St. John, which records the words of our Lord, his last discourse during the Last Supper, is applied by the sacred liturgy to St. Maximilian Kolbe. This is my commandment: love one another as I have loved you. No greater love than this has a man, to lay down one's life for one's friends. When St. Maximilian Kolbe was beatified, he was beatified as a confessor, which means that he was being proposed for canonization as someone who had lived a holy life, and so his life and virtues and his writings were examined to determine whether or not he had lived and practiced heroic virtue. This is what is necessary for a beatification of a confessor, and his life was determined to be that holy. He had lived all the virtues in a heroic degree, and so he was beatified a confessor. So he was beatified for his way of life, his holy life, whereas a martyr is proclaimed such for the manner of their death. Sometimes the martyrs didn't live holy lives. Sometimes they were converted in a moment and offered themselves in sacrifice for our Lord. And so it's the death of the martyr that is being acknowledged by the Church, and the holiness of the person who died for Christ at the moment of that offering. So Saint Maximilian was beatified a confessor, and then the Polish and German bishops petitioned John Paul II when the miracle for the canonization had come, and they were preparing for his canonization. They asked the Holy Father to canonize St. Maximilian a martyr, to change from confessor to martyr. I don't know if that's ever been done before, but it was certainly an unusual case. And the argument of the German and Polish bishops was that St. Maximilian was a martyr of charity. Ordinarily, martyrs were declared so because they died for the person of Christ, for some doctrine of the Church, in confession of the faith, and they were killed in hatred of the faith. In this case, it was not so. Saint Maximilian was not killed per se for some doctrine of the faith, but because he had offered himself in place of Francis Gajnicek, a prisoner in Auschwitz. Francis was a family man, and when he was chosen to be punished for the escape of one man along with 9 other people, St. Maximilian stepped out of line and told the commandant that he was a Catholic priest and that he wished to die in place of this individual. And his request was accepted. He offered himself as a Catholic priest in charity for a family man, and the offering was accepted. And when the Polish and German bishops asked the Holy Father for this canonization of St. Maximilian as a martyr, he told them he would think about it, and up to the day of the canonization, nobody really knew for sure what he was going to do, and it wasn't made evident until the Holy Father and the cardinals came out wearing red vestments. Then they knew that the request had been accepted. So you have this wonderful glorification of St. Maximilian through his beatification as a confessor, confirming that he lived all the virtues in a heroic degree, and that at the same time his heroic life was confirmed and sealed by a heroic death, confirmed and sealed by the Church. And interestingly, this double glorification of St. Maximilian corresponds to a vision that he had when he was a young child, and he was kneeling at the font in the church where he was baptized before an image of Our Lady, and she appeared to him holding 2 crowns, one white and the other red, which he understood to signify purity of life and martyrdom. And she didn't say anything, but he understood that she was offering him a choice, and he said, I choose both. Choose both purity of life and martyrdom. And ultimately, this was confirmed in his glorification. This is a very Franciscan thing, in fact. Saint Maximilian, of course, entered the Franciscan order and lived a Franciscan life. But something similar happened with St. Francis. At the beginning of his vocation, our Lord appeared to him in the form of the cross. The crucifix came alive, the San Damiano cross came alive, and our Lord told St. Francis to rebuild his church. And the early biographers tell us from that moment on, his heart was filled with compassion for the sufferings of Jesus Christ. And then he went on to live an evangelical life, conforming himself to the gospel, to the words of Jesus, and to the life of Christ. And as his biographers tell us, and St. Francis himself tells us in his writings, not only to the life and poverty of Jesus, but also to the life and poverty of his Blessed Mother. And at the end of his life, St. Francis was imprinted with the signs of our Lord's Passion. And St. Bonaventure says that God sealed St. Francis with these signs like a signet ring being pressed into hot wax, because God was giving the church a sign that this man's holy life leads to perfect conformity to Jesus Christ. And so it could be argued that this double glorification of St. Maximilian is a sign for the church in our own age of the way to get to heaven. And the way that St. Maximilian proposed is the evangelical form of life, which St. Francis lived and all the saints really lived, but in a particular way. At this moment in time, it's always been true, but it's even more urgent now, we need to turn to the Blessed Mother. St. Maximilian Kolbe understood this early on in his vocation, even before he was ordained a priest. And on October 17th, October 17th, 1917, he founded a movement, a spiritual movement of total consecration to the Blessed Mother called the Knights of the Immaculata, or Militia Immaculatae. And this was 3 days after the miracle of the sun at Fatima. He didn't know about Fatima, as far as we know, certainly not at that moment, but he founded a movement which perfectly corresponded to Our Lady's requests at Fatima. Our Lady intervened at that moment in time in the history of the world to propose devotion to her Immaculate Heart as a way to overcome the evils of the age and to bring about peace. And 3 days after that event, St. Maximilian founded this militia and lived it with his whole heart, founding one of the largest, perhaps the largest religious community ever, of over 800 friars in Niepokalana, Poland. And there they worked for the kingdom of Christ, promoting it in a particular way through the spirituality of total consecration to Our Lady. And ultimately, the apocalyptic battle between Our Lady and the ancient serpent, between the woman clothed with the sun and Satan, was played out in St. Maximilian's life through the invasion of the Nazis into Poland, his eventual arrest, the scattering of the friars to the four winds, and St. Maximilian's final martyrdom. And what might appear to be the destruction of his work because his community was scattered and his printing presses were stopped, in fact, is this great miracle and sign for the whole world that devotion to the Blessed Mother leads to a love greater than which cannot be conceived. This is my commandment, love one another as I love you. No greater love than this has a man than to lay down one's life for one's friends. This is what we're all called to in one way or another, and we have this spectacular example in the life of Saint Maximilian. Our Lady stood at the foot of the cross, offering herself in union with her Son, and she remains the great Queen of Martyrs, and the one who leads us in the midst of difficulty and apocalyptic crisis to the way of peace and holiness. So let us rejoice that we have this great saint, particularly for us. He is our patron and our guide, who allows us to enter more deeply into the spirituality of Marian consecration and of that love greater than which cannot be conceived, because it is the very love of Christ by which he offers himself on the cross. May we thank Saint Maximilian for the grace we have received and ask his intercession to help us live as he has. Praise be Jesus and Mary.